And we are live. Welcome, readers and book fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I'm so excited to welcome tonight author and professor Piper Huguley, here to give us the inside scoop on her new book, which I'm trying not to get to hyperexposed there on my ring light, by her own design, the untold story of the incredible real-life fashion designer Ann Lowe. Piper, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Ravens. Tell us about this book.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I really appreciate being here today.
Yay.
By Her Own Design is a book. It's a historical fiction novel about the life of Ann Lowe, who is most famously known as the woman who designed Jacqueline Bouvier's wedding gown when she married John F. Kennedy in More Coronation Than Wedding in 1953.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and so unknown, mysteriously enough, I guess, to fit in with your show, that she was not known or has not been recognized fully as who she was, a haute couture designer to the social elite here in the United States in the, well, 30s to the 40s to the 50s and to the 60s.
Well, there is a lot to chat about tonight because Ann Lowe is a fascinating character, and we have a lot to get into. So first, I just want to, and we're going to get to every single tasty bit of it. But first, I just want to welcome everyone. So we are going live to many destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So no matter where you're watching from, you are in the right place. This is the right time. And this is a bit of a different book for us because the mystery takes a smaller seat here. But the story of this woman just captured me. And the idea that she has, the time's dust has covered her over, and that Professor Piper has unearthed her and is revealing her to audiences, 100 years, more than 100 years after her birth, and that we can get to know this fascinating real life woman was just too good to pass up. So as always, we will be getting to all your questions. So just go ahead and type them in the comments, and I'll get them right over to Piper. Barbara, welcome to the conversation. She says, "Good evening. This is Barbara
Hi.
watching from Michigan. Hi, Barbara. Thanks for joining us. Let us know if you have any questions for Piper." And while you're all thinking of those, I'm going to kick off with a few myself. So, Piper, let's talk first about some of the amazing praise that this book has earned. So, we're going to kick off with Kaya Alderson, who is the author of the book Sisters in Arms. And I'm going to pop it up so we can all read it here together. She says, "I could feel the love with which Piper Huguley created this tale about the life of Ann Cole Lowe, yet another hidden figure in American history. Huguley expertly morphs each one of Lowe's heartbreaks into triumph and hope." So, first of all, congratulations on that amazing praise. Your love for Ann Lowe is clear and writ large. Tell us how you came to learn about Ann Lowe. How did you discover her?
Well, I've always been a Kennedy fan. And so it's just by me, being very interested in history, wanting to know any of the Black people that the Kennedys had affiliation with. So I always knew about her in the back of my mind. But strangely enough, it was when I was just hanging out on Twitter back in 2018 when my editor tweeted, would somebody write me a novel about this? And she tweeted out a link to an article about Ann Lowe. And so I looked at the article and I looked at some of the other things on the internet and I said, yes, this is a novel that I can write about. And so just like pretty much right away, I wrote what became much of the prologue to the book. And I sent them to my agent and said, "Tell Tessa I am on this and do not let anybody else know."
Me.
Yes, it is me. I will be the one who will do this. So,
Oh my gosh.
um,
I
yes.
love that.
Mhm.
Debbie, welcome. She says,
Hi.
"Greetings from Connecticut. I read this book over the past weekend." Yay.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you, Debbie, for giving me
Debbie,
a chance.
let us know what you thought about the book. What what surprised you? What was your favorite parts? Let us know what your experience was. So Piper, you said that you had always been a fan of the Kennedys. What attracted you to them? Is it just the glamour, the mystique, American royalty, the fact that they are so troubled by tragedy?
Yes, all of that, all of that. I love family sagas, I love mess, anything where there's, like, a family involved and their ongoing struggles and, yeah, all of that. And, of course, with Jackie, it's, fashion, as well in terms of that. And I grew up in a house with two close horse parents, and my mother was sewed. And, my father was like one of the most dapper men in our city. So I was their nerdy little daughter. They probably wonder where I came from, but I still like looking at, the things and thinking about what fashion does in terms of making a statement, an expression of someone's individuality. And of course, in terms of the case of Ann Lowe and various fashion designers, in terms of thinking about the construction of what it is that they do and thinking of it as artistic creation, which always appealed to me as well. So when I looked at her life story, and I looked at the things that she was doing in terms of creating these designs, sort of her accomplishment of creating bespoke, custom designs, never repeating them, and the way that she would construct a garment in order to make sure there were no lines, that the garment fit in a certain kind of way, etc. I knew that I had to write about her as an artist.
So I also grew up learning to sew. So I learned to sew when I was 5 years old, and I learned on a treadle machine, which for those
Okay.
watching
Mhm,
is the one with the pedal under
mhm,
it. So it's not electric. You push the pedal with your feet, and that's what propels the needle into the fabric. So well, first I learned on a knee pedal, then I learned on a treadle,
wow.
and my mother sewed her own wedding dress, so she was
Mhm,
a very big seamstress, and
mhm.
my 3 out of 4 of my grandparents were tailors, so this is
Oh, wow, yeah, okay.
a story really resonated with me as someone who still I sew my own curtains, my own pillow covers, my own Halloween costumes. I love to sew, and I have my grandmother's 1965 Singer sewing machine, so
Oh,
I'm
cool, okay,
very proud.
okay, okay.
So one thing that I loved about the story was the generational inheritance of this gift of sewing
Yes.
from
Mhm,
Anne's grandmother, who was a formerly enslaved person and the
mhm,
seamstress for the family that she was enslaved by. Then her grandfather actually secured his bride to be's freedom,
mhm,
and then but the family asked if she could stay close by so she could keep creating her incredible creation because she was the best seamstress in Alabama. She taught her daughter to sew, and
mhm,
then her daughter taught Ann Lowe to sew. So it was this generational, 3 generations of the three most talented seamstresses in Alabama. But Piper's sister didn't get that gift. She would baste the things together, which is the long stitches that later come out to hold the piece of fabric
right.
together. But she didn't have that gift that little Piper had, even when she was 5, sewing those little silk flowers together.
Oh, you mean Ann Lowe?
I'm sorry, Ann
Yes,
Lowe. Lowe. So
yes,
when
because I tried to make a baby quilt, and it's still pink and blue triangle somewhere.
oh my gosh, I sew baby quilts for all my friends who have babies. I do the patchwork quilts.
Those are so wonderful, but
So Piper, when you were creating Ann Lowe, and you have the scene of, she's 5, she's creating her little silk flowers. She's 8, she's helping her mom. She's 12, and she starts to step into her own. And she says, "Well, I think if we did this sash differently for a client,
mhm,
would actually make her waist look smaller and give her better lines." So even at 12, a child,
mhm.
she has this gift. So first of all, how do you know these specific scenes? Let's talk about your research, and then how did you bring Ann Lowe to life?
I wanted to, as I said, looking at her as an artist, to really
Mm,
think about her as a protege, which, I
ooh,
mean, wait, not a protege, sorry, prodigy, thinking about her as a child who had a special kind of talent that you noticed in other scenes that both her mother and her grandmother recognized as being extraordinary, even beyond their capabilities. So that's how I set up those early scenes, was thinking about how would someone who was an artist express themselves in this way. This is what's sort of widely known amongst the whole aspect of what we do know about Ann Lowe. There are certain first of all, there are certain things we don't know about Ann Lowe, primarily because she was a Black woman born in Jim Crow, Alabama in 1898. We do know that. We do know that her birthday actually is this Wednesday, December 14th. We know that. But we don't have a birth certificate. So, due to the whole aspects of the circumstances of her life, there are certain records and other things in terms of confirming her life that we don't have. But what we do know is that she did have this early insisted interest, and that she found expression early on when she was young, creating or gathering up the fabrics that her mother and grandmother had discarded in these beautiful evening gowns to fashion into these flowers, which would become her signature as a fashion designer. So, just sort of taking those aspects of her life that were known and sort of creating a story around them to say, why would she do certain things, or how would she get from the flowers to something more substantial, um, etc. Were the things, and these were things that you do when you're writing what's known as biographical historical fiction about someone's life. It's sort of like you have these tent poles and you're constructing the connection between them, the facts or the tent poles, in terms of that. But once, if anything, the mystery of one of the research pieces that I had long sought but didn't get before the book had been completed, which was um, the videotape of her appearing on this Mike Douglas talk show in 1964, where she says that very thing, like, "Oh, I made my first dress when I was 8, blah, blah, blah," she's tossing this stuff out, to say. She was a prodigy, that's what she was. She was this, excellent fashioner, this modeste early on, in her life, so it was good to, when I finally was able to watch that, have those things confirmed, as part of, as part of her story. Um but yeah, in terms of research, a very important thesis was written by a young woman who was a textile scholar by the name of Margaret Powell, who was looking to write a comprehensive biography of her life, which is something that we still need, as well as to create the fashion exhibit, the exhibit, which is what artists get in terms of showcasing their art, to bring together in one place the various dresses, etc., that she had created, and to put them in it together and exhibit. Margaret wrote the thesis and filed it away. She graduated from the Corcoran School under the auspices of George Washington University, and I was able to obtain that, and some of her transcripts that she had when she took interviews from some of Anne's descendants, in order to do certain kinds of research about it. But there were some like little serendipitous things, like
Ooh.
Anne was born and grew up 2 counties away from my paternal great grandmother, and that they were contemporaries, so that I knew certain things about what her childhood probably looked like, uh, as well as the very famous Zora Neale Hurston, who again grew up not too far away, and that I'm a Zora Neale Hurston scholar. So it was like the kind of thing where, like, I might have had a better handle on her young years, especially, than somebody else might have. So those were like sort of serendipitous things that were like, wow, that was cool.
Wow. So your great grandmother grew up 2 counties over in Alabama, and then
Yeah.
you grew up near near Zora Neale Hurston, where in the town in Florida where Zora Neale Hurston's
Zora Neale
father.
Hurston was born in Nothogoligus, Alabama, actually.
Okay, I didn't know this.
Hmm.
I only
Yes.
knew where the
Yeah.
part.
Everybody thinks of Florida, Florida, but she was actually born in Alabama. Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So you were So you were born near her.
No, I was born in Pittsburgh, but I'm a Zora Neale Hurston scholar. That was the
Okay.
area of study that I,
Got it. Okay,
I
perfect.
teach.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Debbie says, I enjoyed this book. Ann Lowe had been unknown to me until this book. Her personal and professional challenges certainly made for a fascinating story. As an aside, my mom was from Nebraska, so I immediately understood your first mentions of Axarbin.
Axarbin, yes.
And I'm new to that. She said, please do
Hmm.
explain that.
Yes, thank you, Debbie, for that mention of Axarbin. Yeah, Anne was glad to get in on that money-making opportunity where they have an annual ball gala, and they employed her as a designer for that one year
Okay,
where
so
they
the
came.
Axarbin is an event.
Yes, it's an event. Yeah, it's Nebraska spelled backwards, see.
Okay, perfect. So
Yes.
thank you. I love that you hooked on to that and that was so
Yes.
helpful to you. Oh,
Yes.
thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thank you, Debbie.
And
Yeah.
saying this, Anne, welcome to the
Another
conversation.
Anne. Hi,
This
Anne.
is such a great story. Thank you for introducing us to Ann Lowe,
Thank you for listening.
our fellow Anne. Thank you.
Yes.
Debbie says, being aware of JFK's selection of Abraham Bolden as the
Hmm.
first AA Secret Service agent on presidential detail, Jackie's choice of Lowe for her wedding dress stood out.
Yeah. Well, her choice, right? Was it her choice? And this is one of the things that's the ongoing aspect. Uh, and in terms of depicting Jackie as part of Anne's story, which really isn't until the latter third of the book, um, that she comes into play there. She was her mother, Janet Auchincloss, was a client of Ann Lowe's. And Ann Lowe designed her second wedding gown when her mother remarried to a very wealthy Hugh Auchincloss. She designed the wedding outfit for that wedding. And she also designed Jacqueline's Deb dress when she was Deb of 1947, Deb of the Year, her sister's dress when she was Deb of the Year 4 years later, her half sisters, her stepsisters. She had an ongoing relationship with the family that goes far beyond whatever. When I would read Jacqueline biographies that would just say a seamstress made the dress or the family seamstress and not name Ann Lowe in the biography. So it was really very much about excavating who did that and restoring the appropriate title to her, a fashion designer, someone beyond a seamstress who was creating custom designs that were individual to each and every customer that she serviced. She designed for Roosevelt's, Vanderbilt's, DuPont's, most famously, Marjorie Merriweather Post of the Post fortune. Um, she had an ongoing relationship with many wealthy customers that are very famous in terms of United States history.
Now, Piper, you got a question. Margaret saying, Deb of the Year, us Californios over here going, what now? So
Yes,
what is that? What's going on?
they used to have a thing where you would. This is what it was when
So
you turned a certain age and you were ready for marriage to be on the marriage market. They would have a great big ball and you would be presented to society, which was to say, here she is, she's ready to be married. And you needed a big floofy white gown for that occasion. But you wanted it to be, it was always a white gown, but you wanted to be different in some way.
from the other white
Yeah,
gowns? Okay.
right. So it's about not it was like I think it was usually like by the second year of your college. If you've ever heard of the alternate terms, sometimes when people talk about coming out, while we now refer that to people who are talking about be free to talk about their sexuality.
Yeah.
Coming out meant bringing a young woman out into society to be ready to be married. And then every year, amongst all of these dead balls, the people in the it probably was a very political process because it probably depended on who you knew and who you were connected to and all of that other kind of stuff. They would make a fuss about or crown an unofficial Deb of the Year. And in 1947, the Deb of the Year was Jacqueline Bouvier.
And how, okay, so many questions. Who decides the
Mhm.
Deb of the year? Like,
Mhm.
and how, I mean, and how do you decide when you're ready for the marriage market? Marriage market, also terrifying term.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, wow. So you would make your presentation. I mean, just Margaret
Yeah,
saying she's been comfortable being the spinster of the year
I
for,
heard that. Yeah, usually it would be, I think in the spring of your, first or second year out of high school, you'd be like 19 or 20
wow.
years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, and in her time, in Jacqueline Bouvier's time, and most particularly because of the horrible marriage that her mother had made. When Janet married Jackie's father, Black Jack Bouvier,
Okay.
who was a terribly adulterous, uh, alcoholic, didn't have enough money really to support Jackie or her sister in the high class society ways
Yeah.
that they should have been. There's a part in the book where Jackie is in the off the rack section looking at the off the rack dresses, and Anne encounters her asking her, "What are you doing here?" Because it's
What are you?
people like me who make you the individual things, right? And it was because when her parents had been divorced at that point, her father was talking about throwing her a ball himself. And she didn't
Oh,
want anything too grand for that ball. So yeah, it was kind of a sad thing. But the grand dress that she wore when she was crowned Deb of the Year was made by Ann Lowe.
Margaret saying it's fascinating to think that this stuff, the
Hmm.
coming out slash presentation from the Victorian age survived
Hmm.
all the way into the 1950s.
Yeah, it really didn't start falling apart until the 60s.
Wow.
But I say Jackie's year was 1947. Her
Right.
sister's year was 51. So they were still a little bit away from that. But the whole objective in that part of society was as brilliant as Jacqueline Bouvier was in so many ways. As a writer, she was a very talented writer. She won a contest from the French version, I think, of Vogue magazine around this time, uh, and it required her to have a year of internship at the magazine or whatever. I think she beat out like hundreds of people by writing an essay to win this kind of thing. But the main objective for her mother was to find a man who's going to be able to support you. And like I said, her mother learned that lesson the hard way because of her father. When she remarried, she made sure she remarried Hugh Auchincloss, who had pots of money, as they said back in those days. And one of the things that people come across in terms of talking about this book that people didn't know is that Jackie was engaged before Jack
So I
to
didn't know
John.
that until I got to
Mhm.
that scene in the book.
Yes, she was engaged to John Huston. And her mother did not was not encouraging of the match because she knew that John Huston, being a mere stockbroker, was not going to have the kind of money that Jackie would needed to be supported. So even as Jackie was working, by the time she's 23, 24, she's working at a Washington newspaper. She went to cover the, Queen Elizabeth's coronation, etc. Her objective was still to find the husband who was going to support her, which she she actually accepted a ring from John Husted, and he came to visit and was going back home, and she gave him back his engagement ring because she had met John Kennedy. It's like, I see somebody better over
Yeah.
here. So, yeah.
She's trading up.
Yeah. She traded up and married JFK.
But what's
instead.
interesting is that her mom, was so, understandably traumatized by her marriage to Blackjack Bouvier, a
Mhm.
consummate cheat and scoundrel and gambler and living beyond his means and
Yes.
not husband of the year material. And her whole goal was to marry her daughter, marry Jackie off to someone who could support her, but then repeats this pattern of generational where she
Yeah. Exactly.
marries her off to someone who is a consummate cheat.
Same as her father, yeah. Mhm.
So there was sort of a bitter irony there. I
Yes,
couldn't help
big
thinking, what if
time.
she had married the first guy, and maybe, how different would her life have been
Yeah.
not in
But
that
even
talk?
notice when she remarried, Aristotle Onassis, right? Money guy, take care of, she's still thinking in that same vein.
Which Ann Lowe notes in her internal monologue is,
Yes.
she says, we've all had to do that as women. I had to do it. My, her mother had to do that. Even Jackie Kennedy Onassis, which she does not like anyone to
Mhm.
call her that Onassis name.
Right.
She does, she says even that, had to, everyone has to do what they have to do. We have a mystery user saying she did, and I think we're getting some interference on your microphone there, Piper.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no
No.
worries. Someone
Okay.
saying, I didn't know about her previous engagement. Me neither. I didn't know until I
Mhm.
got to that part of the book. Was that widely known, Piper, or was that
I
kind of?
guess not. I just, as a Jackie fan, I always knew. I don't know. I've seen all the movies and all the stuff, and whenever you watch any of the movies, we're like, they always get some little third or fourth tier dude to play John Husted, and the little scene when she slips his pocket, her ring, the ring into the pocket, and says, "Well, I'm sorry, but it's just not going to work out." Kind of thing.
Okay.
Because I met this dude at a dinner party, and he was pretty, he had
He's
lots of
from
hair and was hot.
lots of good hair,
Good hair, yeah, exactly.
weird Boston accent, but whatever.
Right.
Readers gotta read. Hey, girl, welcome to Conversation.
Hey,
Always a
thank
pleasure to see your
you.
name pop
Thank
up.
you for coming.
Thank you for
Yeah,
joining.
so Anne had a long relationship with this family, and like I said, knew these girls to the point where this was over decades. And just not naming her. And it was so interesting because when I was doing a signing in one place, someone said, they probably just thought she was just some black woman making dresses. They just didn't think of the designing, the engineering that went into each garment. Her belief in terms of uh, building in the undergarments into the dress and the line so that it would look a certain way and present itself. And as I said, this whole aspect of having this very feminine kind of way of presenting a woman at this point, whether it's for a ball or a wedding, etc. All of that. And the videotape of the Mike Douglas show is online now. Fortunately, I knew where it was, but due to the pandemic and all of this, I couldn't go to Philadelphia and be like, I know that tape is in there. Give
Let me in.
it up. But they posted it, and it's very insightful in terms of first of all, it's in black and white. So when they do have the fashion show that's part of it, you have to use your imagination. But what you see is still so stunning in terms of what she's able to pull off.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff.
Julie, welcome to the conversation. She'd like to know, Piper, how did you come up with the idea for the prologue? It really makes me want to read this book. Yeah, let's talk about that prologue.
Hi, Julie. I'm usually not a fan of prologues, so this was a very interesting thing that, yeah, I was one of those writers be like, prologue, no, but
Well, Piper is also a professor of English literature, so we got to
Yes.
listen to what she has to say about
Well, see, then, what always ends up happening is when I learn something, it's something that I've always repeatedly told my students. So, um, I'm nerd enough to have known that when I saw Tessa's tweet on Twitter, went to the internet to read the article and look up the information on her, and I saw her death date. And I'm nerd enough to know that instantly, without having Googled it, that that was the day after Charles and Diana got engaged. I already knew that.
wow.
So I was like, that, yeah, that's what put that into my head to say, oh my goodness, if she were awake and conscious or whatever, and she had heard that Charles, because I said, having been alive at that time, I was young, but I was alive. So everybody was wondering, when is this dude going to get married? It really was like this pressurized kind of thing
Oh
about
yeah, I remember.
Char. Yeah, it was a big thing about he's just running around with these women. When is he going to settle down? So, yeah. And I said the thing, and this was something that she really did. She chased other commissions after that.
Ooh.
I said, that's the commission. That would have been the commission, right? Of Prince Charles,
Oh,
whoever he was going to marry, that wedding gown. And her thoughts about it, and knowing that she was old, blind, and sickly, and probably was not going to not to chase that commission, let alone not see the commission. So that's what gave me the idea. So thank you very much. Yeah, she chased the Johnson girls, when both the Johnson girls got married uh, in the 60s.
now is it LBJ, President
Yes,
Johnson's daughters?
both Linda and Lucy. She wrote letters and everything. She was always, after that, because of the what had happened with the Jackie Kennedy Commission, and there's always sort of this little aftertaste with it that was kind of like even in the Mike Douglas interview, if you watch it, she says, I did what she wanted to do. We consulted, etc. But somebody else had some input too, in terms of the dress that came out. That's in the book, and 100%, what Jackie would have wanted. But it's interesting to think of her at that point, and what I was thinking of Jackie at that point as 24-year-old Jackie, not yet global icon Jackie, right?
Ooh.
Kind of situation. So,
Wow. Thank you. And I love that you correlated it to Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer's engagement, tying it into what is so present right now with Meghan and
yes,
Harry's Netflix
exactly.
special and um, William and Kate
Yeah,
Middleton.
I know about all that stuff. See, as I said, because messy families, I love that stuff.
That is the siren's call for you, Piper.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Linda, welcome to the conversation, saying
Hi.
Anne certainly made her way up in the world. She sure did. And
Yes.
she goes on to say, dressmaking is an art for sure, not for her, not for Linda.
Yeah. She really did when you think about where she came from.
Yeah.
And I like to say that the book is really a reflection of if somebody has a dream, the length to which they're willing to go to achieve their dream. That's why I say it's really a book for everyone. As I say, it's because it's from the viewpoint of this rather singular, I think, rather singular Black woman genius who really ought to be restored to history, should be talked about at least every February and March, if not beyond that. To say that if you have a dream, that you can achieve it. So
yes, because I mean, this is just a fact. I love what you said, that this is a book that shows what can happen when you have a dream. Ann Lowe literally triumphing over the most humble circumstances in rural Alabama, but with her incredible God-given genius, her talent rising to design haute couture for the most fabulous, famous, beautiful women of the world.
Mhm.
I mean, it's amazing that time's dust has buried her, and
Yeah.
only now is she, with your work, is she coming out to receive the accolades and the honor that she so richly deserves. So I like that idea, and I want to see her continue to shine in February
Uh-huh.
for Black
Yeah.
History Month, March for Women's History Month.
That's why I say at least February and March. Let's get a
And
poster for her. At least then. We
she
can-
should be honored in the Presidential Library and the Kennedy
Oh,
Library.
yeah,
Because
exactly. That's
she,
where the dress is. It's not on display, but that's where the dress is kept, and they put a paper duplicate. But as I think as part of the result of Margaret Powell's hard work prior to her passing away, she passed away sadly enough at 38 of breast cancer.
oh
Um,
God,
yeah, so she never got to finish, this work that she was
oh,
doing. Her, goal of having the exhibit and the biography. The exhibit's going to happen next year in September as part of commemorating the 70th wedding anniversary of Jack and Jackie. And these fashion design students are recreating the dress. And there's going to be 40 Ann Lowe gowns on display between September and January. So some
where's
people
where's that going to
in
be, Piper?
Winchester in Delaware, outside of Philadelphia.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, there are some people who are like making little trips and stuff, and so I probably need to get on if I want to do a little trip or something like that.
Come on up. Come on
To
up.
go, yes. Oh no, I
I'll
will
meet
be
you
there.
there.
I am going. I am
I'll
going.
meet you there.
So yeah.
Anne saying, I immediately went to try to find pictures of the wedding gown. Are there other photos of Anne's work available? So, yeah, so I posted two of my favorite. One, because I wanted to see Anne actually working on the dress,
Mhm.
and one of the dress itself, where you can see her attention to detail, everything that Piper's been saying, the lines, the pleats, her love of flowers, the all that handwork.
Mhm.
Where can people find more, Piper?
Yeah, it's pretty much as you just Google. There are many examples that pop up under like the Google Images tab. Sort of the ones that I talk about more in the book, of course, are Jackie Kennedy's wedding gown, as well as Olivia de Havilland's gown, which her other most famous commission. Olivia de Havilland, who I guess is best known to people, is playing Melanie in Gone with the Wind. But several years after that, won the Academy Award for Best Actress. And her, how it is when you go to the Oscars back then, it's the same thing. People would, show their fashions, and then it would be said, who designed this dress? Not this time. The person whose name was revealed was Sonia, who was actually Ann Lowe's boss. So Ann Lowe did not get credit for what is clearly Ann Lowe design. And instead of the fabric flowers in the Olivia de Havilland dress, if you Google that, Olivia de Havilland Oscar-winning dress, she hand painted that floral design that comes across from the bust to the floor. I know. I marvel at that.
Wow.
I'm like, she's like, and it's like it's not a stencil. She hand painted that onto the gown. And
Wow.
it's an earlier example of a strapless gown, which I think put strapless gowns into the zeitgeist of the late 40s and the early 50s, looking at fashion
Ooh.
history.
Julie saying, wow, you have such a good memory for dates. Thank you for the great answer. Julie, thanks
Oh,
for the
you're
great
welcome.
question.
I'm a professor nerd. That's what I do.
Just gotta read. Ooh, great question. What was Anne Lowe's own personal style?
Her own personal style was to not be obtrusive. She was
Ooh,
known for wearing black and the little black dress, which she had in many styles and forms. She wore hats because her hair was very thin. And yeah, so that was what she would wear whenever she was with clients and consulting. And if you look at the Mike Douglas show tape, that's what she has on. which for just trying to put together a cover, um, which is an important thing. Yeah, exactly. So to center her, right, always was a difficulty because in a lot of the photographs of her, she's not centered, right? She's off center. She's off working, like the one you posted, Sarah. She's
Mhm.
working on someone. And I kind of insisted that in this case, I wanted her to be centered. Uh, and it took 9 go rounds to get.
And another really cool detail about this book is that I'm going to hold it really close. It says
Yeah.
by her own design, and and it actually is raised.
Isn't that
So
cool?
it's
Yeah. That's
beautiful.
a cool little detail.
So it
Right.
looks like a
A
clothing
label, yeah, and everybody knows fashion, like, the label is everything, so it
label,
was really
everything.
cool. Yeah. It was
But
a
it's
really cool
textured.
detail.
It feels like embroidery, and so that just makes
Yeah,
it extra special. Just
yeah. It wasn't something I hadn't even thought of. I was just like, I was like, "Can we just put Anne in the middle of the cover?" I don't
oh,
but they finally figured it out, so.
oh. Well, I'm glad that they centered her. I'm glad that you fought for that.
Yeah,
Reader's got to read. Thank you for that fabulous question. And saying
yes.
this is fascinating. Thank you,
You're
Linda. Saying
welcome.
such great details about Anne. Thank you, Linda. Thank you for the great questions, the great comments.
Yeah.
Y'all, the book is out now, and you can grab your copy right here from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, Murder by the Book. So put your order in and support woman-owned independent bookstores. And the good folks at Murder by the Book will ship it out to you tomorrow. So no matter where you're watching from, here is the link. Click, 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 order, order, order. And you too will want to get your hands on this book and on Anne's story. Readers, you've got to read saying thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Gotta read. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Well, Professor Piper Huguley, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all of this delicious information. Julie saying, I think this is going to be my full price buy for the year. Yay. Thank
I hope
you.
you enjoy it, Julie.
Thank you so much. Piper, what a pleasure to host you. And thank you for sharing. I mean, what beautiful work to tell this story of this woman, this incredible protege, this talent, this of a lifetime, of a generation, of a century, and to bring her forward and to honor her memory and her work.
Thank
Um,
you.
it's so special. So thank you for coming on and sharing with us. Y'all, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your fabulous questions. And Piper, come write a mystery, will you? And come back and talk to us about that.
I'm intrigued now, so we'll see.
Yeah, Margaret says she was surprised to see the great Piper Huguley on Sara DiVello's channel. Hey,
I
Margaret,
made it, yay.
I gotta keep you on your toes, right? You just
That's
never.
right.
I can't have you thinking that that I'm predictable or something. I gotta keep y'all on your toes. A double delight. That's very kind, Margaret.
Thank
Thank you so much.
you.
All right, y'all, have a great rest of your Monday. Have a great week ahead, and I will see you next time right here on Mystery Thriller Ravens. Take care,
Bye,
y'all.
everybody.